If you've been diving into Arc Raiders, you already know this game doesn't play around. Every time you load into a raid, your guns are basically on the line. One wrong move, one unlucky fight, and that shiny weapon you spent hours crafting is gone forever. That's why picking the right gun isn't just about damage numbers or cool animations. It's about finding that sweet balance between performance, rarity, value, and how easily you can replace or upgrade it when things inevitably go sideways. So in this video, we're breaking down the real standouts in the entire Arc Raiders arsenal. From the weapons that absolutely melt enemies in PvE to the clutch picks that give you the edge in PvP, we're going through all 20 guns and what makes each one worth using. Whether you're confused about a weapon's strengths or you just want a quick overview of what to bring into your next run, this guide is going to make your loadouts a lot smarter and your raids a lot safer. Let's get into it. I'm quickly moving on to the video and I'm ranking weapons in Arc Raiders. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. The weapons in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Hairpin and Kettle. I swear every time I pull out the Hairpin, I feel like I am cosplaying as the quiet kid in a loud game. It is the only weapon in Arc Raiders that comes with a built-in silencer, and that alone gives it a whole different personality. The fire rate is slow, the damage is tragic, but wow. The accuracy and the stealth potential make it the perfect companion when your goal is simple. Loot everything in sight without letting anyone know you were ever there. And honestly, the Hairpin shines exactly where it is meant to shine. You can sneak around and take out pops, ticks, turrets, cameras, and basically any small arc machine without causing a scene. It does that job beautifully. Just promise me one thing. Do not try to start an actual fight with it, because the moment someone shoots back, the Hairpin turns into moral support rather than a weapon. Now, let us talk about the Kettle. I love the feeling of the Kettle, I really do. But in a game where almost every gun wants to be a hero, the Kettle is more like the guy who shows up but forgets why he came. It is technically an assault rifle, but it deals low damage, it is not fully automatic, and it gets outclassed by basically everything else. Still, compared to the Hairpin, it can actually hold its ground in a player versus player fight, just not by a wide margin. But here's the funny part. The Kettle is the quietest gun in the entire game, except for the Hairpin with its silencer. So if you are building a super lightweight and stealth-focused loadout, the Kettle is not the worst option. It is just not the one you brag about. Think of it like bringing a thermos of lukewarm tea to a battlefield. It works, technically. But you know deep down there were better choices. The weapons in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Hullcracker, Torrente, Berletta, and Stitcher. You know when you bring a really fancy gadget to a party, only to realize it works in exactly one oddly specific situation? That is the Hullcracker. It launches missiles that only damage ARC units, which makes it feel like a specialist doctor who refuses to treat anything outside their field. Try to use it against a player, and congratulations, you just donated a very expensive weapon to the battlefield. But when you are farming arc parts in the late game, the Hullcracker suddenly becomes that friend who only shows up once a year, but brings the perfect gift. It fires much faster than a missile launcher has any right to fire, and its damage against Arky is absolutely ridiculous. A Wolfpack hit by a single Hullcracker blast can instantly delete a Rocketeer, which feels incredibly satisfying every single time. Now let us talk about the Torrente. The moment you equip it, you immediately understand why it is classified as a light machine gun. It is heavy, it is bulky, and it slows you down like you are carrying a refrigerator on your back. On top of that, the bloom and inaccuracy make long-range fights feel like you are painting the air rather than shooting at enemies. But wow, the damage. The Torrent dishes out consistent damage that surpasses even the epic rarity Bettina when it comes to damage per second. And with a default magazine size of 60 rounds, it can hold down an entire lane all by itself. You can upgrade that magazine even further through the gunsmith, although, honestly, it is not really necessary. I would personally leave the Torrente at rank 1 and then use it up close where it absolutely melts players and arc units alike. The Berletta, on the other hand, tries to be the opposite of dramatic. It is a semi-automatic pistol that fires fast, weighs virtually nothing, and does not drain your bank account to upgrade. Despite being simple, it hits surprisingly hard, and it can shred through light shields so quickly that players are often confused about how they died so fast. There is really nothing wrong with the Berletta. It is a clean, reliable little sidearm that will never betray you. The only problem is that it lives in a neighborhood full of bigger, flashier, rarer weapons that do everything it does, but louder and better. So the Berletta ends up being the dependable friend who always gets overshadowed. Now, let us move on to the Stitcher, your trusty starting submachine gun. This thing is basically chained to close-range combat, not because the damage drops off immediately, but because the bloom and low damage per shot make it pointless to shoot at anything more than a few meters away. If your enemy is not close enough to smell what you had for breakfast, the Stitcher is not happy. However, power is one thing the Stitcher does not lack. When you compare damage per second values, it actually beats the Rattler and holds the crown as the highest damage per second fully automatic gun until you unlock the Torrente, which overshadows everything. So the Stitcher is strong, just very unforgiving. In many situations, it is simply not the gun you want to rely on, but in tight spaces it turns into a shredder that surprises anyone who underestimates it. The weapons in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Il Toro, Arpeggio, Rattler, and Equalizer. You know that moment when you turn a corner and accidentally walk straight into another raider, and both of you panic? That is exactly where the Il Toro thrives. It is a hard-hitting shotgun in a third-person shooter, which already makes it a menace, but its range is as short as a bad excuse. Out in the open, it abandons you like a fake friend, but in a dark corridor, the Il Toro becomes your personal home defense system. If you land your shots cleanly, you can drop targets in 2 or 3 blasts. Just do not expect that magical one-shot kill. The trick is to peek, shoot, and slide back into cover like you are playing whack-a-mole with other players. Then repeat the process until someone drops. Most raiders have no answer to this tactic because by the time they figure out what is happening, the Il Toro has already signed their eviction notice. The Arpeggio, meanwhile, has a reputation problem. Players see that 3-round burst and immediately act like it personally insulted their family. But if you manage to get your hands on one early, when most enemies are still using light shields or rattlers, the Arpeggio becomes shockingly deadly. In skilled hands, 3-round bursts are more like controlled lightning strikes. Accuracy and recoil control are where the Arpeggio truly shines. It is the first weapon in Arc Raiders that actually feels adaptable, with none of the massive drawbacks you see in other early guns. Once you start upgrading it and boosting the fire rate, the Arpeggio becomes a monster. Every upgrade feels like a huge investment return, and the gun slowly evolves from pretty good to why was I ever using anything else? The Rattler is the dependable early game workhorse. If you want damage that actually matters, whether you are shooting ARC units or other raiders, this is the weapon you pick up without a second thought. It is stable, has respectable range, and it deals consistent damage for its price. It is the gaming equivalent of that colleague who always gets the job done with zero drama. But the Rattler has one painful flaw. The magazine size is microscopic for a fully automatic weapon. You run out of bullets faster than you can finish saying, "I should have reloaded." And because it does not support a magazine attachment slot, you are practically forced to upgrade it to rank 3 before it becomes truly reliable in player versus player fights. Still, once upgraded, it is one of the strongest starter weapons you can carry. Now let us discuss the Equalizer, the experimental beam weapon. This thing was practically born to fight ARC units, and it takes that job very seriously. The beam melts through armored ARC parts like a hot knife through sadness, and few weapons can match its efficiency in pure machine hunting scenarios. If you want ARC farming done fast, the Equalizer is your best friend. But against players, oh boy. Suddenly the Equalizer acts like it forgot how to weapon. The damage potential is poor, and the bright glowing beam is basically a neon sign saying, "Legendary loot here, please come eliminate me." Against ARC, it is a monster. Against humans, it is an invitation for disaster. Use responsibly. The weapons in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Tempest, Venator, Bobcat, Osprey, and Pharaoh. There is something incredibly comforting about picking up the Tempest. It feels like the Rattler's older, cooler, more athletic sibling who went to the gym and actually stuck with it. Higher damage, a bigger magazine, better arc armor penetration, and even smoother handling make the Tempest feel like the moment your life gets an upgrade and everything suddenly works a little better. When you carry a Tempest, you are basically holding the second best fully automatic weapon in the entire game, only beaten by the legendary Bettina. The Tempest is consistent, powerful, and wonderfully predictable. If the game suddenly turned into a group project, the Tempest would be the one doing all the work while the rest of your loadout takes credit. The Venator, meanwhile, feels like a tiny handheld miracle. It is the lightest gun in Arc Raiders, weighing only 2 kilograms. But unlike the Hairpin, the Venator actually punches back. Every trigger pull fires 2 rounds at once, and with its extremely fast semi-automatic rate, it can drop enemies faster than they expect. It is small, but it hits like a very angry pocket-sized thunderstorm. Its biggest weakness hits you almost immediately. The magazine size is tiny. 10 rounds vanish in the blink of an eye, especially with how quickly the Venator spits out bullets. And since upgrading it does not increase the capacity, you absolutely need a magazine modification to make it a dependable player versus player sidearm. Without one, you spend more time reloading than shooting. The Bobcat is what happens when someone takes the Stitcher and says, "What if we made this thing terrifying?" It is an epic rarity submachine gun with monstrous damage output thanks to a fire rate so high it feels illegal. Even heavily armored players can get melted before they realize they are in danger. Of course, all submachine guns come with their usual baggage. The range is weak and the recoil shakes your screen like a blender filled with loose screws. There are plenty of situations where the Bobcat is simply not the right pick, which is the only reason it does not make the jump to S tier. But when you are close enough for it to shine, the Bobcat becomes a people-shredding lawnmower. The Osprey is usually the first true sniper rifle players get their hands on, and it instantly teaches you the beauty of long-range domination. It comes with a built-in long-range scope that cannot be removed, but that is exactly what makes it easy to land precise hits from incredible distances. Against someone using a Pharaoh at 150 meters, the Osprey gives you a clear advantage. The catch is that the scope is permanent. Once an enemy gets close, the Osprey goes from long-distance superstar to "why am I holding a telescope in a fist fight?" At close range, the Osprey loses almost all value, and switching to literally anything else becomes a matter of survival. And now we get to the beloved Pharaoh, the superstar of the early game. This single-shot battle rifle hits like a truck crashing through a brick wall. It is accurate, it has fantastic ARC armor penetration, and its long-range damage makes it perfect for opening fights before the enemy even knows what is happening. But the Pharaoh demands discipline. Do not try to charge into combat holding this thing like you are in an action movie. Miss a shot at close range and you are basically offering yourself as loot. The Pharaoh is best used to initiate a fight from afar, then immediately swap to a rapid-fire weapon to finish off anyone using a light shield. Do it right, and the Pharaoh feels like the smartest weapon in the room. The weapons in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Patina, Renegade, Anvil, Volcano, and Jupiter. There is something magical about holding the Patina. It is the kind of weapon that instantly makes you feel like the main character, even if you were looting trash 5 minutes earlier. The fire rate is slightly slower than most fully automatic guns, but that is exactly what makes it so controllable. Every burst feels deliberate, powerful, and deeply satisfying. The Patina has only one real problem. Getting your hands on it is like trying to win the lottery twice. It is rare, expensive to upgrade, and even more expensive to maintain. But once you finally secure one, suddenly every fight feels easier. Long range? No problem. Tight corridors? Even better. If I could only take a single, fully automatic weapon into a high-gear raid, the Patina would be the one I trust with my life. Next up is the Renegade, a battle rifle that feels like the Pharaoh's glow-up phase. While it does not hit quite as hard per shot as the Pharaoh, the much faster firing speed more than makes up for it. On top of that, it performs beautifully at long range, staying laser-true even when the pressure ramps up. The funniest part is how every upgrade makes the Renegade fire even faster. By the time you reach rank 4, the gun feels like it is actively trying to erase enemy players from existence. If I ever had to face an entire squad alone and pick one weapon to do it, the Renegade would be the one I'd take. It rewards skill, confidence, and good aim like nothing else. Then we have the Anvil, the absolute menace of early game builds. It is almost unfair that this thing is so easy to craft because it hits harder than a lot of rare and even some epic weapons. A hand cannon that is lightweight, fast-firing, and delivers incredible stopping power is already strong, but the Anvil also punches straight through ARC armor like it is chewing gum. The range may not match that of a Pharaoh or Renegade, but everything else about the Anvil feels premium. With 6 powerful shots and high reliability, it pairs beautifully with almost any secondary weapon. Combine it with a Pharaoh for a disgustingly strong early game loadout, or pair it with a fully automatic rifle to handle every range with confidence. Now let us talk about the Volcano, the heavyweight champion of close quarters combat. It is an epic semi-automatic shotgun that deals utterly absurd damage at point-blank range. If an enemy steps even a little too close, the Volcano will delete them faster than their brain can process what happened. Because it fires so quickly, the Volcano is incredibly forgiving. Miss a shell? Fire again instantly. Land a shot? They are probably on the ground. But there is one big catch. The magazine only holds 4 rounds. That is why attaching a magazine modification becomes the #1 priority if you're lucky enough to find one of these monsters. And finally, we reach the Jupiter, the endgame sniper rifle that turns long-range fights into instant highlight clips. It does not suffer from noticeable damage fall-off, and every shot hits like a meteor. It uses energy clips, which can be annoying to manage, and there are no attachment slots at all, but once you pull the trigger, those downsides feel irrelevant. A well-placed headshot with the Jupiter does not just win the fight, it prevents the fight from even happening. It is the perfect I decide how this ends weapon. If you enjoy controlling the battlefield from absurd distances, nothing comes close to the raw authority of the Jupiter. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.